Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Can I acknowledge Tim as our MC and my fellow speakers from around the country. Ladies and gentlemen, my intent today is to provide initially a geographical context in terms of where we are in Queensland and where that's located, but also a context around complaints within Queensland as well. So Queensland is located in the northeastern quadrant of Australia, so up the top point. We have a population of 4.6 million. It's split into 8 police regions. We're the third largest agency, public sector agency in Queensland, behind health and education. We're just short of 500 police establishments across the jurisdiction. In terms of numbers, we've just got over 10,600 sworn officers, and with the new Liberal National Party government, that number is increasing over the next 3 to 4 years by something in the order of 11 to 1,200. And we've got just over 4,400 unsworn members in the organisation. And sadly, those numbers are going to decrease for those of you around the country who will see the austerity measures that are being put in place in Queensland. So that gives us a total of something over 5,000 officers, both sworn and unsworn. Now, within Queensland, it's a large state. We police both rural, remote, urban and marine environments. And we're also the only state jurisdiction that actually has a border. So at the far northern tip of Queensland, from Saibai Island and the Torres Strait, you can actually see New Guinea, and that forms our international border. So it's a unique environment in which we operate. And in terms of our complaint profile, what you see before you is our complaint stats from 2004 through to the last financial year ending in mid-2012. So this slide depicts the complaints made by the public and complaints reported by police and staff members, all encompassed together. The graph also benchmarks complaints per 100 employees in the organisation. And you'll see we reached a peak in 2009-10, and I'm pleased to say it's been dropping off. The trend has been declining over the last couple of financial years, and I'm happy to say that the first quarter of this financial year, 12-13, that trend continues down, so that's a pleasing sign. In terms of those complaints, the majority of which are reported by members of the public, some 75%, and the balance is made up of police and staff members reporting on other members of the organisation as well. Probably not dissimilar to the rest of the country and other agencies, our 3 top areas of complaint focuses on official conduct. That's about 18% of complaints in total. Assault and excessive force without weapons contributes about 20% of our complaint profile, and demeanour and attitude is another 20% of complaints. So particularly around that demeanour and attitude, if we can have some influence there, and we're focusing on police legitimacy as a way of addressing that, if we can just move that by a few percentage points, you can see that have a significant impact in terms of the raw numbers of complaints that we would have within our jurisdiction. So that's as far as our background and context is concerned. The current challenge that we've decided to address in Queensland, we thought we'd go for the easy one, is to actually have major structural organisational change and reform the discipline model within Queensland. I'm sure you'll agree that's no small challenge for us to embark on. So this is about developing a new policy system to renew public and member confidence. Successive external reviews have identified failings of the QPS discipline system, including noting matters resolved through the investigation process can be over-engineered and in many cases take in excess of 2 years to resolve. So those reviews have recommended changes to correct the systemic structural inconsistencies and focusing on remedying individual behaviour, which you would have heard from New South Wales, as an alternative to the current focus on the discipline and punishment. So from our perspective, any discipline system has to ensure public confidence, operate in a timely manner, be fair to the individual members, and ensure professional standards are maintained at the highest level. The system, as Paul indicated, must also have the capacity to remove from employment those who cannot be assisted. In 2010, following a review of the police complaints system by the CMC, our oversight body, the Crime and Misconduct Commission, they released a report titled Setting the Standard. And that identified 4 essential characteristics of a model police discipline system, in that it should be simple, effective, transparent and strong. The CMC made 11 recommendations in that particular report to improve our complaint and discipline system within Queensland. One of those recommendations recommended that further work be done to overhaul the current model. As a consequence, the Queensland Government of the day, the Labor Government, subsequently appointed an independent expert panel to conduct an investigation. They provided a report in May 2011. Now, that independent review concluded that the system within Queensland, not surprisingly, was administratively burdensome, over-legalistic in its approach, and was adversarial. So the report made 57 recommendations, of which 56 were supported by government and by the service. And that was largely around focusing on a philosophical shift from a punitive approach to one that was based on a remedial intervention and a restorative justice principles. So the former government endorsed those recommendations, and we established within the organisation an implementation team engaged with other areas of state government as well. So quite a number of significant stakeholders were involved, including our Justice Department, the CMC, and other areas of government as well who were impacted by these recommendations. So we've worked closely with them over a period of time since March this year to implement what we could, and importantly including a joint assessment process with the CMC, which has allowed us at an early stage to triage serious investigations, serious complaints, and have them addressed in an appropriate way. So it may be that they are better addressed managerially, or alternatively it could involve a full investigation by the QPS, the Ethical Standards Commander. Alternatively, it could be retained by the CMC for them to investigate. The other option is, of course, that there's a joint investigation undertaken by both ESC and CMC, and we've done that on a number of occasions, and that particular process is working very successfully. Most of you would be familiar with our election in March this year, which resulted in a change of government, and the new LNP government have yet to fully consider the reform recommendations in terms of the prior government, particularly around the new government's 5 community objectives and their newly announced policies with respect to frontline policing, and also with respect to the impact of the Commission of Audit's review on the state's finances in Queensland. So pretty much anything that has money attached to it is going to be in question. So at present, sadly, the implementation of those recommendations is suspended pending the government's further consideration. Pleasingly though, the QPS Commissioner Designate, Mr Ian Stewart, and the government have already indicated that they are supportive and have a commitment to reform the discipline process in Queensland. So that's not a bad thing. So the timely resolution of complaints is of paramount importance to us as a service. It's important to our reputation. It's an ongoing focus of the media, our oversight body, the CMC, as well as government. So the process must exist to provide for a fair and timely resolution of complaints and a discipline management strategy which is consistent, proportionate and decisive while still adhering to procedural fairness and natural justice. It is expected that the current system will be subject to reform going into 2013, and underpinning this for us, it's important that we actually have an updated IT solution to support the new reform. As you'll be well aware, those sorts of systems don't come cheap, so therefore we'll be looking to provide a well-structured and compelling case to government that the investment of those funds will be an appropriate investment that will have a return in due course. So I'd now like to turn to our key initiatives that we've implemented in Queensland. One of the reforms we implemented statewide this year was a system called the Administrative Consensual Discipline Process, the ACDP. This is a component of a joint initiative by both the CMC and the QPS in terms of implementing a way to refine the way in which we deal with complaints within the state. And this project, while emphasising managerial resolution of complaints at a lower level and devolving that responsibility to line supervisors, also saw an opportunity to examine possible alternatives to the discipline hearing process and the appropriate sanctions that go with those hearings. So this ACDP is an administrative process where a police officer can accept responsibility for their conduct and be provided an indicative sanction before the matter is finally determined. I noticed on the slide that the term they can make an early plea. I guess this is a hangover from our legalistic approach to administrative matters rather than the term of accepting responsibility, which is probably the more appropriate language to use in these circumstances. So this system allows for an officer to be provided with a form which proposes to them an indicative sanction, and if they accept that sanction, they can then have the matter dealt with in a very quick way. So this process offers an accelerated finalisation of discipline matters, and discipline matters finalised through this process have a much shorter time frame than those that would have a normal hearing process attached to it. And as I've indicated earlier, that can be upwards of 12 months, 2 years, or even longer in some cases. So this is a snapshot, if you will, of 1 month. So we've had 4 dealt with in the month of July this year. And you can see that the timelines, this is really just in terms of the paper turnaround from the time an officer is given the documents to say, well, this is the behaviour that's being addressed, and this is the indicative sanction that I'm considering as a prescribed officer to give you. So it's a matter for you then to determine whether you'll accept that or not. So it's entirely voluntary. You'll see there can be the second one down. The officer was very keen to have the matter resolved because it was turned around and completed within the day. So that's an extraordinary occurrence within our state. There's a drink driver there at the start which had 70 days attached to it. So you can see that they can be addressed very, very quickly. So we're still working on refining this process, particularly around things like procedural fairness and apprehended bias. The other matter I wanted to talk to today related to our gifts and benefits, and that's already been addressed by Clive in terms of the Victorian situation as well. But whilst the bell's gone, I think it's important to cover off on a couple of issues around this, because it did involve engagement with CEPS, and I'll talk to that very shortly. So the gifts and benefits that we embarked on, it was a consequence of the CMC investigation into the Gold Coast that many of you would be familiar with, Operation Tesco. It was very topical in the media at the time. And the Commissioner gave a commitment that we would address the gratuities issues, and some of the behaviours were identified through that investigation, particularly around how officers in the Gold Coast were alleged to have been involved with a number of nightclubs and the like. So we engaged with the various unions, and whilst there was general consensus in a lot of the issues, particularly around things like police shouldn't be involved in accepting gratuities from various industries such as the sex industry, regulated areas such as liquor licensing, tow trucks and the like, and also that there should be no solicitation by our officers for gratuities. Unfortunately, they couldn't agree on the issue of discounted food, free and discounted food and beverages offered on a recurring basis, and obviously is the half-price McDonald's type scenario. So the Commissioner undertook to provide, having been stalled by that process, to conduct some further research, and that was detailed to our area to undertake. In doing so, we reached out to the Integrity Commissioner, we extended our lit review, we looked at national and international policing jurisdictions, and we also took the step of seeking advice from our CEPS partners as well, who are well regarded in this area, and Tim in particular is acknowledged in that space. And CEPS were able to provide a discussion paper for us which really informed our policy making, and they were able to assist us in shaping that particular policy. As a consequence, the approach taken was a little different. We decided as an organisation to address this from a cultural change perspective, which involved the acceptance of refusing, as you would, the free and discounted food from the various fast food areas that provide it. So that policy came into place at the end of last year, and is consistent with whole of service and whole of government approach. In terms of implementation, the Commissioner engaged the Senior Executive to be the champions, so the Assistant Commissioners and the Executive Directors to be his champions in the field. We provided them with consistent information for their local sessions that they embarked on across the state. We from the ESC had an approach where we targeted recruits at the academy, and we also targeted the senior leadership courses for senior officers. And in between that, to capture that group in the middle, my command embarked on a number of outreach sessions across the state, targeting local police in local jurisdictions. And that was important about providing some context around how they would use that new policy in their own local jurisdiction. That's been quite successful, but we also identified that it wasn't just a matter of having that inoculation, that they would need over time those booster shots. So what we've done is transition those outreach sessions now into a professional standards training continuum with our academy, so that that will become an enduring issue by way of a training initiative across the state over time. We also engaged with the fast food industry itself, and surprisingly, once they found that the Commissioner had identified that this particular course of conduct was not consistent with our values as a modern policing organisation, some have actually removed the discounts that were available. And most of them, of course, were quite upfront. They saw it as cheap security, enticing officers, particularly uniform officers, into their premises. But they also acknowledged, in some cases, the position of our Commissioner, and were in agreement with removing those particular discounts. Not all, of course. And some were quite open in saying, well, no, we're not going to do that. That's the way we do business, both here and internationally. So how do we then, over time, do we map this? Being a cultural change, it's a continuum. So we'll put in place a longitudinal study to map that cultural change as we embark on that journey from this point to some point in the future, where hopefully it will be identified that this will be the way of doing business in Queensland, and our officers won't seek those discounts where they're made available by fast food. So I'd like to finish there. Thank you very much.